Hi, my name is Gabby Sultan, and I'm interviewing Priscilla Arguez today because she is a second language learner of English. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
So, like you mentioned, my name is Priscilla Arguez, and I was born here in the United States, but my first language was Spanish because my parents are both from Cuba. So, as a child, I knew Spanish first, and as I started going into the school system, is really when I started learning English. I think probably when I started going to like pre-K is where I started my English. Um, I'm an owner of a home health agency now, and I'm not sure what else, but that's the start.
So, what area of the language do you think was most difficult for you?
I
Since you,
definitely think the spelling is difficult because it's not phonetic, where Spanish is very phonetic. English, you have to memorize a lot. So even when I would ask my mom for help, she would not help me very much. So, for example, I would ask her, well, how do you spell a dictionary? So she would be like, dick, shun, airy. Because in Spanish, you can break it down like that. And in English, obviously, it would spell something completely different.
how do you think the age you started learning English at changed your experience since you did start learning it pretty young?
Well, I'm a big believer that the younger you learn it, the easier it is. So I think I'm glad that I learned it at a young age because I think the older you are, the harder it is.
Was it integrated in your curriculum, or did you have some classes in Spanish, some classes in English, or was it all in English?
No, I don't know. Back then, I think everything was in English. I don't think they had like
They
what the
didn't have
kids.
an ESL program for
No,
you?
no,
And that was in Miami, right?
that was in Miami. Yes.
What language would you say is more dominant for you whenever you were growing up and then now?
Oh, that's hard. Now I would say English
Mm-hmm.
because I do everything is in English. My kids speak English. My my relationship with my husband is in English. Um, and here I'm exposed more to English. Where in Miami, I feel there was more Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
So in Miami, when I lived there, it was definitely you would get more out of you would do more Spanish speaking
Because
randomly
of the culture there?
because of the culture and how many Hispanics there are over there.
How did your teachers growing up in a math or science course, do you think they contributed to your second language learning at all?
No, I don't think they contributed anything.
What aspect or feature of your first language influences the most of your second language? So, is there something that you struggled with in both or that helps you with both?
Hmm. I don't know. They're pretty different languages, so I think that's a hard question to. I would have to really digest that one or break it up. But I feel that they're very different, so I don't think that there's one that helps the other.
Do you feel like school and socializing with people influenced your second language learning and made it go further than it would have had you just learned in school?
Ask me again. Sorry.
If your relationships with people and your classmates having to share with more than just learning it from your teachers, do you feel like that helped you in learning English more and having to use it in just conversations with peers versus just how whenever I learned Spanish, I just sat in a classroom and was taught by somebody. I never really was immersed in it.
I think having grown up in Miami, it was really different than maybe your experience because there were so many people just like me. So there were so many people that knew Spanish first, and then when they started school, they started learning English. So I think it was good in the sense where I never had to worry about what my peers thought about my Spanish or my English. I never knew that I had an accent until I moved out of Miami, and people from other parts of the country told me I had an accent. So I never had to worry about that part of it. And so I feel like my relationships were easy in that aspect where
you didn't have to feel judged or you had to do things a certain way.
Right.
Because that is a big thing with people learning a second language, feeling like they aren't going to say something right or just being embarrassed about it.
Right. It wasn't like that at all. I mean, you would still say something silly or something and they may correct you, but you wouldn't feel as bad because maybe the next sentence they were doing the same thing with a different word,
At home, even once you started to learn English, did you speak English or Spanish with your parents?
I want to say both. I mean, probably, both. Because my parents came from Cuba at a very young age. My mom was 11 and my dad was 14. So by then they knew English very well because there was very little immigrants in Florida when they got here. Mm-hmm. So they were immersed immediately in English. So I've always been able to speak to them in both languages. So we kind of go back and forth in speaking the two languages depending on what we're doing.
Okay. Thank you for letting me interview you today.
No problem.